So then why would his child be special? Then wanting to hide the speciality and uniqueness of Sayyidah Zahra said, no, he wasn't even a prophet. How could it be that Allah had blessed him so much and that he had such unique attributes already? He didn't even know he was going to be a prophet, na'uzubillah. So they went and they tried to hide her birth by changing the time period of her birth and saying that no, it's not possible. He wasn't even a prophet. How could it be? He was just learning that he would be a prophet. Remember, if it's a year of his enunciation takes place after this. Ba'tha comes after this date. So they tried to hide it and say that no, it wasn't special. Yet look at the amount of effort that Rasulullah exerts, that he gives us all of these attributes of her birth. That how he changed his behavior, how fruit from heaven was sent, how she possessed the scent of Jannah, and whenever he would miss heaven, he would smell his daughter and he would be reminded of heaven. How she was the one that she was his Abiha, the mother of her father. All of these uniqueness and attributes. And then Fatima bad'atun minni. Fatima is a piece of me. They tried to hide all of this by saying, no, it's not possible. Because if they can say that the birth date was prior, they can invalidate all of this and say that no, this is hearsay, because how could it have happened if her birth took place before? So instead of going and attacking each and every single one of these ahadith, because there were so many different specificities of her birth, they tried to discount the entire experience and say, no, all of this. The light, the speaking from before she was born, the people of heaven coming to assist, all of these attributes, put them away. Because it happened before he was a prophet and he didn't even know he was a prophet. Which is why, when we see these debates about tariq, and that's it, it's unique that we know so much about her birth, and yet it's all these people who then turned around and separated themselves from her example. Why? Because once you accept how special she is, how unique her character is, then anyone who denies her, abuses her, goes against her, has to be from amongst the worst of characters. So if I can't raise their character, what do? I deny the attributes on this side. The consequence was what? They took the entire nation of mu'mineen and muslimin and separated them from the example and from the path and the knowledge of this great wasila and shifa, this great source of intercession and protection. In the life of Sayyidah Zahra, I'm going to take a few more minutes. You guys are okay? We can wrap now or we can keep going. If you're reciting salawat, we'll keep going for a few minutes. In the life of Sayyidah Zahra, there are some really important examples and lessons for not just the women, but for the men as well. One of the very interesting attributes that is associated with her, and it's associated with her name, and which is why we're mentioning it, is that what's associated with her name is that hiya kanat Fatima. Her name is Fatima, the one who separates. Wa Fatima shi'atuha an nar wa Fatima a'da'uha an hubbiha. That she is the one who will separate her Shia from the fire of hell, and Allah is the one who separates her enemies from her love. That they don't love her, they want nothing to do with her, so that they can't receive her intercession. Her intercession is something that's so special and unique. To understand this, you have to look. There are certain things that Sayyidah Zahra has in her life that are lessons for each of us, which is, for example, the concept of her marriage. And this is an interesting discussion, tarikhan and akhlaqan. Tarikhan, it's interesting. Why? Because the age of her marriage. That at the time of her marriage, which takes place in the second year after Hijrah, she is approximately 10 years of age. She was born 5 years after the enunciation of Islam, which is 8 years before Hijrah, and then after Hijrah, 2 years after Hijrah, she gets married. So the age is about 10 years of age. When we look at this age, tarikhan, we say, how is that possible? And that's the ethnocentric approach that we have, that we look at everything in the light of what's appropriate in our culture, in our environment. In our country, our culture, for a 10-year-old to get married is inappropriate. Even if Islam allows for a 9-year-old to be married, we would say in our culture this is not correct, because our culture, it doesn't make sense. And same thing today, if someone came today and said that I want this 10-year-old to get married, I wouldn't recite her nikah. Why? I would say it's inappropriate in this culture, in this environment, and therefore we don't do this action. Islam appointing 9 as the minimum age of marriage is to describe and say that in humanity there are different cycles, different places, different times, different cultures. And that the minimum limit of where a marriage can be appropriate is this point. Not to say that this is the point that all of humanity should get married, but that in cultures and times this will be appropriate. And for us to recognize that this is something that in that culture and that time was appropriate, we can look back to our own grandparents. You'll find many of our grandparents are married at 15, 16. If you don't even look back too far, maybe 2, 3 generations at most, you'll see that this was a tradition in our culture. So why would it be difficult to imagine and understand that it could exist differently in that time? So historically speaking, this is an interesting point. Islamically and akhlaq-wise speaking, there's a very important lesson here. You see, the purpose of this life is to go to heaven. One of the easiest ways to go to heaven, one of the most important ways to go to heaven is through marriage and the preference of marriage and hastening to marriage. That example being present in the seerah of Sayyidah Zahra is significant to teach us of how to prioritize our life. That marriage should be a priority and it should be something that's hastened to, not delayed from. We have the hadith of Ahlul Bayt that explain to us, one who wants to meet his Lord free of sin and mistake, meet Allah as a married person. This lesson tells us that this is something to hasten to. It's a priority, it's important. Islam wants us to move in this direction, which is why in the seerah of Sayyidah Zahra, this element is so important and this discussion is so significant and mentioned so clearly. And then the other element of this marriage is who she gets married to. That our Holy Prophet would make the statement, say, لولا علي ما كان للفاطمة قف من الآدم إلى الخاتم. That had it not been for Ali, there would be no one who is the equal of Zahra from Adam, from the first of humanity until the very end of humanity. This discussion and the mentioning of Kuf and who she gets married to, as well as the fact that she gets married, points to the significance of what are the attributes we look for in marriage. The same way we talk about the significance of preparing for your children and preparing your character to be a father, in the seerah of Sayyidah Zahra is the discussion and understanding of what to look for in marriage and to hasten to marriage, not to delay marriage. The attribute that's discussed for her, and remember, she's the daughter of the leader of all of the Muslimin. That the entirety of Islam, and Islam in its uniqueness is both a religion and a government. Meaning that the authority of Islam at that point in time was absolute in every realm. And the daughter of the head of that state, who does she marry? Not the wealthiest person, but the most pious of people. And Rasulullah describes, and he says, when he says, Lola Ali ma kana lil Fatima kuf, this kuf refers to religious equity. Looking for the attribute that iman and faith is a priority in a spouse is one of the most important things that we look at. That if there is equity in piety and interest in piety, then the other elements of society will even themselves out. Even though the Arab and the women of the Arab would come and they would harass Sayyidah Zahra the way they harassed her mother, that your father married you to a pauper, to a poor man, to someone who has no wealth, who has no status, who has no position. They said the same thing to Sayyidah Khadija. Sayyidah Khadija never regretted her decision. Sayyidah Zahra never regretted her decision. The attribute of what to look for in a spouse was described and explained. Look for that religiosity and that piety. If you can find someone with piety, if you can find someone who has fear of God, they don't need to fear you. You don't need to be the authority over them. You never have to worry about the fact that will they please me or do I have to please them? Rather, if they're interested in pleasing Allah, they recognize that that marriage and that spouse is a way through which they attain proximity to Allah. Showing mercy to your spouse, kindness to your spouse, is one of the ways that we show that, oh Allah, what you preferred for me, I love. This entire discussion, why is it significant? Because understanding the attribute that at the enunciation of this message, there's a conversation that takes place between father and daughter that is announced to us, and we'll end on this point. When Rasulullah comes and he says, oh Zahra, I have set your mahar for the marriage to Ali in the amount of approximately what equivalents to about 500 dirhams. Sayyidah Zahra replies and she says, this is the mahar of a normal person. I want something different for my mahar. And this is what shows you the uniqueness of this relationship. And if you can appreciate this one point, inshallah, then the point of celebrating today is important. Rasulullah says, what is it that you desire, my daughter? And she replies, she says, Ya Rasulullah, I want to have the right of intercession for all of the mu'mineen on the day of judgment as my mahar. Understand why she says this. She is from the house of Rasulullah. Ali ibn Abi Talib is the house of Allah. If Rasulullah is setting the mahar for his daughter, then who is the one that has the right to give the mahar for Ali ibn Abi Talib? The possessor of the house is the one who will present the mahar for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Therefore, Sayyidah Zahra, when she asks for a mahar, she does not ask for the mahar that a normal person can give. She asks for that mahar that only Allah can give, because she is marrying the representative of the house of Allah Himself. Allah in turn gives her this permission, and which is why the attribute of explaining her name, that she is the one who will be the guarantor of her Shia from the fire of hell, is not an attribute that we decided upon, but rather is an attribute that Sayyidah Zahra guaranteed herself for us through the process of asking for it in her mahar to the one who was born in the house of Allah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Therefore, celebrate and take certainty that if you have learned of the example of this lady, if you have been attached to the example of this lady, that the entire world tried to hide from you and our Prophet announced their attributes over and over again. If you have been affiliated with her and enjoy the fact of her happiness is your happiness, and that you are one who is happy that you have this opportunity to celebrate her, then inshallah we have asked to be included amongst her Shia because we have affiliated ourselves with her character. And therefore we have affiliated ourselves with those that she describes on the day of judgment. They will be picked out from the community of the people in Mahshar, the way a bird picks good seed from bad, the same way I will take my Shia from the field of Mahshar and enter them into heaven with me. ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. By the wasila of this great lady we call out 10 times, Ya Allahu, Ya Allahu, Ya Allahu, Ya Allahu, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Mahmud bihaqqi Muhammad, Ya A'la bihaqqi Ali, Ya Fatir as-samawati wal ard bihaqqi Fatima, Ya Muhsin bihaqqi al-Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Ahsan bihaqqi al-Hussain, Ya Allah bihaqqi Fatima wa abiha wa ba'liha wa baniha wa sirr al-mustawdi'a fiha. By the right of Sayyidah Zahra, her father, her husband, her children, and those from her lineage, oh Allah, forgive our sins and cover our flaws. Ya Allah, keep us and count us amongst the Shia of Sayyidah Zahra. Ya Allah, by the right of this great wasila, we have gathered here with hajat, fulfill our hajat. Ya Allah, those amongst our families and our communities that are suffering through sickness and disease, give shifa and aman to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us and our children from the upright supporters of Sahib al-Zaman, and entitle us to the ziyarat of Imam Hussain in this world, and the shafa of Aba Abdullah and his mother Zahra in the hereafter. Remembering all of our marhumeen, those who have left us in this year, have left us recently, and our family members, and those who have gone before us and who have given us the barakat of this iman and this love of Ahlul Bayt. 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. आ गई फातिमा آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
جبرائیل امین دے رہے ہیں صدا، آ گئی فاطمہ،
آ گئی فاطمہ،
آج خوش ہے بہت اشرف الانبیاء،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
عرش سے فرش تک نور کا ہے سما، آئی عالم میں 11 اماموں کی ماں، عرش سے فرش تک نور کا ہے سما، آئی عالم میں 11 اماموں کی ماں، دور عالم کا سارا اندھیرا ہوا،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
مصطفیٰ اور حسنین اور مرتضیٰ حکم خالق سے جب ہو گئے ایک جان، مصطفیٰ اور حسنین اور مرتضیٰ حکم خالق سے جب ہو گئے ایک جان، پھر درودوں کی بارش میں زیر کسا،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
جس کے در سے ملک رزق پاتے رہے اور بن بن کے خیات آتے رہے، جس کے در سے ملک رزق پاتے رہے اور بن بن کے خیات آتے رہے، بیک لینی ہے جا جلدی کش کو للا، آ گئی
فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
میں گناہ گار کیا میری اوقات کیا، ایک آنسو کے بدلے صلائے ملا، میں گناہ گار کیا میری اوقات کیا، ایک آنسو کے بدلے صلائے ملا، خود سے خود میرے حق میں کرنے دعا،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
میں حسن مشکلوں میں گرا جب کبھی، میں نے دربار زہرا میں فریاد کی، میں حسن مشکلوں میں گرا جب کبھی، میں نے دربار زہرا میں فریاد کی، ختم ہونے نہ پائی تھی میری دعا،
آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی
فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ، آ گئی فاطمہ،
صلوات محمد وعلى محمد،
اللہم صلی علی محمد۔ Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Nare Haidari.
It's up to you. You can play if you want.
I'll participate where I need to.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone doing? As per tradition, and we won't take up too much of your time because I, like you, am also starving, we're going to play a quick Kahoot, and if we were all paying attention to Sheikh Bilal's lecture on Sayyidah Fatima, as of course I was, but we won't find out because I'm not playing, many of the answers on the game are ones that we already heard from Sheikh Bilal. So, are we all ready? Can we have a salawat to start?
So those who want to win, I'll be playing over there, and usually I have my kids who play with me. So if anybody wants to play with me, I'll be playing over there. I'll leave it at that.
Right, so the game pin, in case of any...
889 1886.